La Confédération des États du Sahel informe l'opinion qu'un aéronef appartenant à l'armée de l'air de la République fédérale du Nigeria, de type C-130, a été contraint de se poser ce jour 8 décembre 2025 à Bobo-Dioulasso, au Burkina Faso, à la suite d'une situation d'urgence en vol, alors qu'il évoluait dans l'espace aérien burkinabé. L'avion militaire avait à son bord 2 membres d'équipage et 9 passagers, tous militaires. Conformément à la déclaration du Collège des chefs d'État, en date du 22 décembre 2024, ont été autorisés à neutraliser tout aéronef qui violerait l'espace confédéral. Fait à Bamako le 8 décembre 2025, général d'armée Assimi Goïta, président de la transition, chef de l'État de la République du Mali, président de la Confédération des États du Sahel.
The Malian officer is just explaining what happened. The way this news has been reported by the press and on social media, it seemed as if they intentionally violated their airspace. No, that wasn't what happened. The Nigerian aircrew in the C-130 aircraft had an emergency in the air. It's a nightmare to have an emergency at about 30,000 feet in the air. They had that emergency, they had to send out an SOS, and it happened that the nearest airport where they could make the emergency landing happened to be in Burkina Faso. So they didn't just set out, like already said, to violate their airspace and by extension the airspace of the AES. You know they are now a confederation. The 3 countries of Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso. And the current president of the confederation is Goïta, that's the president of Mali. They used this opportunity to send out a warning message to Nigeria and others that any airplane that violates their airspace will be shot down. He cited the resolution they made some time ago and it will be carried out. So it's like them saying this is the last warning. Any other time it happens, we are going to shoot it down and damn the consequences. So after they made that emergency landing, they welcomed the troops, 3 crew members and 8 soldiers, all of them military personnel. It's not as if they are under detention, but they are still holding them there. Of course, they are not going to abandon the aircraft. They had an emergency with the aircraft, so it will need to be fixed. And of course, the Nigerian government should be about now negotiating with the government of Mali or the AES so as to resolve the situation and know how to fix the aircraft, because obviously they will need spare parts to fix the aircraft. Of course, the emergency must mean they need to fix the aircraft on the ground there before taking off again. So maybe many people that reported this before, it might be a problem of language barrier. They didn't understand the French. So they interpreted the message the way they understood, or maybe they used AI. Sometimes most of these AIs, they don't actually translate very well like, a human being. When someone speaks a language, you cannot translate it word for word. There's a particular way of speaking a particular language. The way you speak French is not the way you speak English. So as Nigerian languages, the way you speak Hausa, Igbo or Yoruba, you can't just translate them word for word. Now, another thing Nigerians are wondering is, where were they flying to have been nearby Burkina Faso airspace and eventually made an emergency landing there? We all know that the Nigerian Air Force bombed Benin Republic. They bombed the military barracks where the revolutionary soldiers that carried out a failed coup in Benin Republic were hiding. Now, after that bombing, they have returned. How come another military aircraft made an emergency landing in Burkina Faso? What were they finding there? Were they traveling to another country and they suddenly had an emergency mid-air and were forced to make an emergency landing? What really happened? Anyway, there's no need speculating any longer about what they were doing there, why they were nearby Burkina Faso. The government released a statement saying the crew were headed to Portugal. And when you look at this flight path, of course, this flight path is for commercial airliners, but it can also be acceptable for military aircraft to use the same flight path. After all, they will always demand permission before flying over every country on their path. As you can see, flying from Lagos to Portugal, you have to enter the airspace of Burkina Faso and the airspace of AES. From there you head to Morocco, and from Morocco you get to Portugal. So this is acceptable. If they didn't have that emergency, this wouldn't be in the news. Another thing to note is that C-130 plane is a huge plane, is a transporter. It can be used for air freight. So any country that takes their security seriously would always flag such a plane down. they will always force it to land because you don't know what it is carrying. Maybe they are carrying a sophisticated surveillance equipment, or maybe they are carrying ammunition that they can drop in your country. Yes, they actually make an airdrop with a parachute. You can drop anything you're carrying, ammunition, weapons, whatever. So no one should blame them for doing what every reasonable country that takes their security seriously will do, especially when there is serious insurgency in these countries. They've been fighting wars the past decade. There have been terrorist attacks. Recently, the terrorists conducted a blockade, preventing delivery of fuels. And also they've been battling external powers. France lost Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger Republic. And people might feel, they lost these 3 francophone countries and they're about to lose more. No, France actually lost these countries, but they gained the most populous country in Africa. Yes, they gained Nigeria under Tinubu as a client state. Imagine gaining a massive country like Nigeria, and an English-speaking country for that matter. And it didn't start today, it started even before the presidential election of 2023. Remember, Tinubu was always in France before the elections, and the first country he visited after he was declared winner was France. Yes. So it didn't start today, it was a plan that started under Muhammadu Buhari. They knew already they were losing many francophone countries. As a matter of fact, they will still lose more in the next decade, if not in the next 5 years. So gaining Nigeria is actually a better deal compared to the countries that they lost. One huge example is, look at what happened in Benin Republic. Immediately the revolutionary soldiers announced the coup. It didn't take up to 1 hour. Macron called Tinubu. He posted it himself that he called Tinubu, and the next thing that happened, Nigerian Air Force jets were all over Benin Republic, bombing the hideouts of the revolutionary soldiers. So they lost 3 countries and gained a massive one. They can now use to do whatever they want. They can now use their leaders to fight other African countries. Think about it for a moment. That's why there's this hostility from the AES countries to Nigeria. They know that Nigerian leaders are allied with France, the France that they chased away from their country. So they know they will be playing with fire if they are not very careful with Nigerian leaders. Think of it like the friend of my enemy should also be my enemy. These people suffered under French colonialism. In fact, that colonialism never ended, despite the fact that they were granted independence, but that independence was just on paper. It is now that they are liberating their countries. They have liberated them completely and also removed the influence of France from their countries. So with the open romance of Tinubu and Macron, they have to be very careful. They are now seeing Nigeria as the enemy. Imagine African countries that used to see Nigeria as a big brother that they always run to, not just to seek help and aid. They all used to respect Nigeria in the past. But today, most of them see Nigeria as the enemy. Can you imagine that? A big brother in the 70s, Nigeria used to pay salaries of workers in many African countries. Many Nigerian judges served as chief justices in many African countries. Are we going to talk about the role Nigeria played in liberating South Africa, the fight against apartheid? Back in those days, no world power, including the United States, Britain, Russia, all of them used to consult Nigeria before they do anything in Africa. Not that they were afraid of Nigeria, but it was the respect, the amount of influence we had in Africa. That was why they consulted us. They want to make a deal with any African country, they always came to Nigeria first. Yes, people can research about this. All that our influence is now in the mud. So what caused it? You can trace it back to this man. A man that came to power and immediately picked up a fight against Niger. He wanted to send troops to Niger to fight them just because there was a military coup in Niger, something that is completely their internal affair. He wanted to go to war. If not for northern senators that stood their ground, he would have deployed troops to Niger Republic. Also, he has picked up another war with our western neighbor, Benin Republic, for the same excuse. Now he's claiming that Talon invited him, that they invaded and bombed Benin Republic on the invitation of Talon. So all these aren't necessary. Africans are now seeing us as the enemy. That should concern everyone. Not talking about the leaders. Most of these leaders, they know themselves, they are all corrupt, they don't work for their people. If they work for their people, there wouldn't be military coup. Everyone will be happy, yes. African citizens are the ones now looking up to Nigeria as an enemy, as people that are working with Westerners, foreigners, to destabilize Africa. This should concern everyone.